Hey, hello Gerald 508. How are you? Dr. Walsh here. Welcome back from our downtime with Blackboard. Very stimulating discussion that's still ongoing by Nicole and Norma on exercise. I think what we're learning is that we all really feel it's important. We all embrace it in our own special way. There's no one size that fits all. Okay, whether it's Tai Chi or surfing or walking up and down stairs. And one thing that we're learning is the social aspect of it and how important it is to have a group that will stimulate you to get out there and get it done. It's very engaging when you do that. I have buddies calling me all the time. I'm not really thinking about it. I'm down. And they say, come on, let's go. And the next know, I'm in. I'm going. So this is why it's important to have this social group. I apologize. I got a head cold right now. My son brought it home yesterday. I'm sure a couple of you have it already. And then my other son got it, and I got, oh my God, it's a horrible cold. Okay, so thanks again, Nicole and Norma. And now we go on to cardiovascular disease. Number one cause of disability, disease, and death in our country. And Amanda and Joyce have done just this outstanding job preparing a PowerPoint that is an overview of everything you need to know. And it all comes down to something going wrong with our pipes, okay? This atherosclerosis process, okay, where we develop the fatty cholesterol and lipid-laden plaques, and it causes a stenosis or a gradual attenuation or smalling of the vascular diameter, and then it's much more tougher for the blood to go through, and because it's smaller in diameter, there's more tension, okay, same volume of blood in there, so there's hypertension, and because it's disease, it no longer releases nitric oxide, and this is this natural relaxing element that Viagra has made so famous. Okay, so all that combined leads to a super high risk, as Amanda and Joyce indicated, for many systems going down, including the cardiac system. So you have high risk of cardiac failure or heart attack. You have high risk of a brain attack or stroke. You have high risk for kidney disease because of the hypertension. You also have high risk for having trouble with pulmonary function. Okay. And this is what my dad actually died of. It's called congestive heart failure. And what happens is the blood is pumped so poorly because the heart is slowly dying off. That's how far along these people are, that it just kind of sludges through the lungs, and all the liquids leach out into the lungs, and you feel like you're basically drowning in your own fluids. You're suffocating. And so what you do is you give people diuretics, you tell them don't eat salt, stuff like that. And it's a finger in the dike, unfortunately, because the ship has sailed, for another colloquial term, and the heart is already dying off, and you can't get that cardiac muscle back. Okay, so bottom line, when we look at the underlying process, again, like I said, atherosclerosis, this is a lipid disease. So this is why it's so important to have a tight control over our cholesterol and our triglycerides. And we have these set numbers that you want to follow. You know, your true triglycerides should not be over 150. Your total cholesterol should not be over 200. You want to have your HDL to be above 60. You want your LDLs or your total non-HDL cholesterol to be, less than 150. These are all just numbers that you should know when you have your physical done. And unfortunately, we have to oftentimes rely on medication, and there's a bunch of cholesterol-lowering drugs, statins that reduce the synthesis of cholesterol in our livers, because we need cholesterol to make cells and to make different types of hormones that our body uses. And the best thing is exercise and diet. Okay, the underlying process, lots of oxidation, causes oxidation of the LDL. Glycation, like we see in diabetes, causes a permanent alteration of the LDL, and the immune system flips out when it encounters these oxidized and glycated LDLs, and you get this huge inflammatory response. And that's why CRP, C-reactive protein, it's an inflammatory marker, is such a good marker of vascular disease as well. So, and that's part of the testing that's done along with the lipid profile that I talked about. We don't want to have the glycation, so you get a test for diabetes. I'm going to have that below 200 as well. And what else? Homocysteine is another one. Okay, and homocysteine is derived from protein and mostly found in meat. Okay, so and this is why beef is not another reason not to avoid beef. The folic acid cycle is what reduces homocysteine, but it creates more methionine. So yeah, so it's a vicious cycle. What do? Well, we're going to have diet and exercise, and when that doesn't work, then we start tapping into the different types of drugs. Like I said, we have the lipid lowering drugs. We're going to reduce our hypertension, okay, because you run the risk of having an aneurysm burst. And the more tension on the walls, the more scarring and damage, the more inflammation, the more disease. It's just this ugly downward spiral. Okay, so we reduce the hypertension with things like calcium channel blocking drugs. We also have the beta-adrenergic receptor, the fight or flight response. We block those receptors and try and bring the blood pressure down. And all else fails, we need rapid intervention. Then we start doing things like when somebody has a heart attack or stroke, you use something like the Pac-Man that chews up the clots. That's tissue plasminogen activator. Oh yeah, and I forgot to mention, to avoid the risk of having a heart attack or stroke, we'll put you on a blood thinner. It's going to reduce the aggregation of platelets. That's one branch, and the other branch is to reduce the coagulation proteins. Warfarin is the most familiar of those drugs. Xarelto is a new one where you're blocking the coagulation proteins. If TPA doesn't work to bust that clot, if you've had a heart attack or stroke, then we're going to go in there, we're going to do a catheter intervention surgery, come up to the femoral vein and get in there and suck out the occlusion, or we may suck it out and then have to do balloon angioplasty followed by implanting a stent. And if that doesn't work, you can't do this in the brain, but in the heart and other parts, you can do just bypass surgery. So, alrighty. So let's talk this up. It's good to have this knowledge, and we'll see you next time. Oh yeah, and Ray, I'm sorry that things are a little bit slow. You mentioned to me that things are a little bit slow, and Blackboard's going to get better. Take care now.